to look at some marketing concepts for people under the age of 65. First one that pops out at you is when you talk to people about health insurance. A lot of people today are insured with a low deductible plan that's costing them a lot of money. One of the things they could do would be to switch to a high deductible plan, and they could save a good bit of their premium. Now, the risk is a critical illness or another high dollar event occurring that could cost them a lot of money out of pocket. So what's the solution? Let's use critical care. If we take a client and offer them a high deductible plan, show them the savings they're going to receive, and then use part of that savings to buy critical care to hedge their bet. It's not going to protect them 100%, but it's going to give them coverage against the major things that can happen out there. Be careful when you do this. Make sure you have a pretty good understanding of health insurance so you don't lead a client into bad water here. You want to make sure that you're taken care of and doing the best job you possibly can for your client. So there's the first concept we could look at in the under age 65 crowd. The second concept we could look at in under age 65 would be income replacement. You've got a lot of people out there that are self-employed and they don't have enough or they don't have any disability insurance. This is an area critical care can be used. It's nice, it's simple, and it's low cost. You got a person that doesn't have disability, you can walk out there and say, here's the deal. You probably haven't bought disability because it's hard to get and it's expensive. Let me show you a low-cost alternative to a disability plan. Now, if I take a person that's 45 years old and I quote them a low-ball plan, 6-month plan with $3,000 benefit, look at that monthly premium. $34.51. Now, you might think in your mind that's a lowball plan, but let's take a look at what it would do. First of all, it's going to provide between $18,000 and $36,000 for any 100% condition. That's going to be enough money to pay the maximum out of pocket on their health insurance and help them replace their income when it's needed. It's going to restore automatically, and it's got a $108,000 maximum lifetime benefit. Nothing wrong with that plan for $34 a month for an average client out there. Let's see what happens if we load this client up. If I go all the way up to $3,000, 24 months, I'm still only talking $107 in premium. But now look at what my potential benefits are. If I've got a 100% condition, I'm looking at anywhere from $72,000 to $140,000 in benefits. This is money that I could use not just to cover my out-of-pocket. This is some substantial income replacement that I can have. It's got the built-in restoration, and it's got a lifetime maximum of $432,000. That's a lot of benefit out there for a very low premium. So good concept is go out and talk to these self-employed people. You'd be surprised at how many will take a look at this and say, I can afford $107 a month. I just couldn't afford what they were talking about for full-blown disability. So this is the second concept here. Let's take a look at another concept. This concept's very similar to the one I just talked about. It's called protecting partners. My target market here is going to be self-employed people that are in partnership or just informal or formal. And it's a real good way to cover people that are in professions that are pretty hard to insure for disability. I'm going to do very similar to what I did on the last concept. Instead of keying in, though, on one person, the self-employed person having a critical illness, I'm going to start talking about the other angle. What happens if you're in partnership with somebody and they have a critical illness? All of a sudden, they're out of work for 6 months here. They're going to kind of expect the business continues to pay them. But during that 6 months, I'm going to have to hire somebody to replace the work they normally did. Critical care is a great product to walk in there and offer them some cash relief at this point in time. So protecting partners, again, very similar to self-employed, except we're keying in on the other person getting hurt and how to protect the partner who isn't sick while we have a partner that is sick. This is the end of this concept. Let's go on to the next one. Another use of critical care is when we get into the dependent care area. You know, we have to recognize today that there are a lot of people who didn't start their families until later on in life. So they're in their 50s and they're still sitting out there with dependents. Because remember, today it's age 26 that we rule dependents in healthcare. So when I have a person sitting out there and they've got a dependent, this is a great time to use critical care, because I can walk out to there and show them the normal plan I'm going to show them without adding the dependent, and then turn around and throw the cost of the dependent on the policy. You know what's going to cost in a typical situation with critical care? Less than $1 a month. And when you're talking less than $1 a month, all of a sudden that becomes a no-brainer to the client. So always remember, when you get into these younger ages, that dependent coverage is a really good buy. Here's an example. I looked at a 45-year-old client. I quoted them a plan. This was kind of an interesting one that I just want to talk about for a second. With that, I wanted income replacement here. So I put a $3,000 monthly benefit here, 6-month plan to cover the short-term things that can happen with critical illness. Mom, I wasn't so concerned with the income, so I dropped her down to just enough coverage to cover their high deductible on the health insurance plan. Then look what happened when I added their son under there. 77 cents a month. And I'm giving him a 6-month plan up to $1,000 a month benefit. It's going to pay somewhere between $3,000 to $6,000 for critical illness. That's extra cash that is going to help this couple out. That extra dollar a month is going to close you a lot of sales. Why would a 21-year-old person even think about buying critical care? When agents ask me that, I turn around and ask them, why wouldn't you? You know, if you think about it, if you've got a 21-year-old out there and you're looking at critical care, first of all, the cost is pretty low. I can go out there and write a 6-month plan, $3,000 a month benefit, and I'm talking about a cost of $12.65 a month. That's about as low cost as you're going to get. And if my client has a claim, we're looking at a pretty good benefit coming out of this product too. It's going to protect their insurability. You know, I have to realize that there are a lot of strokes happening to people under the age of 65. I look at sports players out there. You hear about heart attacks occurring all the time. These are things that could make a person uninsurable. So the bottom line is, especially when we get into football players and stuff like this, why wouldn't you sell them a critical care plan? If they do have a claim, you've got the extra dollars here that's going to help the family out. And at a cost of $12 a month, that's real cheap to protect the insurability of your client's future. So always know that we're not dealing with the product here you just sell to people over the age of 65 or people in the 40s and 50s. We're selling a product here that can almost be sold to any age person. If I'm looking at a 21-year-old and that 21-year-old was like I am, okay, when I was 21 years old, I had a family and I had 2 kids. I didn't have any disability protection out there. You would have offered me a plan like this for $12.65 a month. I would have jumped all over that. Why? Because the main things I was worried about was the big critical illnesses. What happens if I have a stroke and all of a sudden I'm out of work for 6 months to a year? I'm a pretty good player out there, and the fact is, I can pretty much figure out a way to make money somehow. What would affect me, though, is something that lays me down in bed and lays me there for 3 to 6 months. So don't pass up these young kids. This is a great product to go out and show them. And you'd be surprised how many are going to look at that $12.65 and say, I want that plan. And I've got a client which offers me potential sales in the future. Let's look at that same kid and let's look at a full bore plan. If I write a $3,000 a month for 24 months and I'm doing it on a 21-year-old, I've got a premium of $36. Now I'm looking at a plan here that's going to pay up to $6,000 a month. It's got built-in restoration of benefits, so that means I've got a $432,000 lifetime maximum benefit. That client who's 21 years old probably has a pretty good chance, probably better than an older client, to having multiple claims during their lifetime. Therefore, they got a good chance that they might really chew into that $432,000. If I'm looking at a football player that has a lot of potential out there, he's in a pretty dangerous sport, I'm going to look at a plan like this and say, isn't it worth it to pay that $36 a month and know that you've got this plan backing you up? Again, that's a pretty attractive look to a younger client. I want to thank you for attending this first volume of my marketing concepts out there. And I want you to remember a couple things when we talk about selling. First of all, I'm a strong believer in something is better than nothing. The bottom line is I'm going to make sure that I get my client covered for something. I don't have to sell them the Cadillac plan. If they can afford it, that's my key. I know that if I can find the premium for them to make that premium payment, guess what? My sales are going to be a lot easier out there. So I'm going to do a good job of doing some financial qualifying with my prospect and finding a way for them to pay that premium without it coming out of their current income. When I'm out in the field, I don't want to limit the use of critical care. I want to expand it. I've got a dynamite product here. It stacks up really good against all the other critical illness plans. Let's use it. This is volume 1 of my marketing concepts. Watch for the future volumes that come out because you all know me. I don't make no bones about it. Okay. I steal good ideas out there. And as I travel out there and I talk to top producers, I learn more new ideas that I can share. So I want to wish you all good selling. This is Mark Randall saying goodbye. Thank you.